The city is prettier up high, Sero realizes. Granted, he wishes he'd come to that conclusion on solid ground without his feet nervously planted on a skyscraper ledge, but still. Every whip of wind threatens to topple him over, send him careening down into a frenzied spiral of buildings and colors until he meets concrete at the bottom. And he's supposed to willingly jump. He wonders if he'll pass out before his bones meet solid mass, cracking in so many different ways the coroner will have to play connect the fragments until he's a person again. Behind him, an impatient cough sounds, bringing him back to the task at hand. Fuck. You're probably wondering how he got here. Let's rewind a week. At 10 p.m. on a Friday, the city is in its prime, bustling crowds of people laughing and stumbling through the brightly colorful streets. Haunt is just trying to protect his pad thai and dumplings, hugging the greasy paper bag to his chest as he weaves in and out of the chaos. A day full of long classes and a quiet shift at the cafe/bookstore halfway between campus and his crap one-bedroom apartment leaves him exhausted, shoulders hunched as he makes his way home. Nobody ever sees him regardless. The city's too big for one lanky, always tired beanpole to be much notice. Despite living in Brooklyn since he was 4, he's never felt 100% comfortable here. He's had an accent right up until he was 13, still trips over certain words and customs that don't exist back home in Japan. He's awkwardly tall, not enough to be a phenomenon, but towering over all of his family. He just doesn't quite fit anywhere. Too smart and plain to be popular, too boring to be with the jokesters, too awkward for the nerds. He's been a loner all his life, and while he doesn't mind too much, he just wishes it was a little easier to belong. A text rolls across his phone screen as he's shuffling songs, skipping some J-pop rock song to settle on Kendrick Lamar as he smiles. You. He couldn't lie and say he was completely alone. Not when he had you in his life. You were a year younger than him, but twice as smart, skipping a year ahead and landing yourself in Hanta's high school freshman English class. The pair of you had just clicked. From the very first moment he pointed to Shakespeare's likeness on the cover and mocked, "What, you egg?" Your laughter had left him on cloud 9 the entire day, and he made it his personal mission to hear that beautiful little giggle at least once a day for the rest of his life. A lovely friendship had bloomed from there, the two of you joined at the hip. If you were somewhere, Hanta was bound to follow, and vice versa. He was a biochem engineering double major, while you were an English history double major. You were opposite, but similar in so many ways, and the way you both completed each other didn't go unnoticed by Sero. You were his puzzle piece, the bits of him he'd never be able to fill easily made whole by your presence. He could never tell you, however. Your friendship was too precious to risk, especially over his dumb emotional heart. Sending a string of laughing emojis towards the meme you sent, he jogs up the 7 flights of dimly lit stairs to his tiny one-bedroom apartment. Living in the city wasn't cheap, and while the elevator was always busted, at least he had a doorman and heat that worked, on occasion. Stepping into his apartment, however, he can immediately sense something is wrong. The hairs on the back of his neck stand up, a heavy silence coating the darkness. The air feels wrong. Topsy-turvy, like the whole place is holding its breath. Like something's on the verge of exploding, catapulting him into chaos and danger. Quietly stepping through the living room, he peeks into the kitchen and bathroom, holding his backpack out like a makeshift weapon. His $200 biology textbook finally going to good use. Finding nothing in either dark room, he slowly advances toward his bedroom, carefully measuring every step. At first, the room seems perfectly normal. Nothing's been moved, and it's just as empty as the rest of his apartment. And then he sees the blood, dotting his windowsill in bright red streaks, the window itself pushed halfway open. But that's not what stops him in his tracks, eyes so wide it hurts. Spider-Man is leaning against his windowsill, covered in blood and panting heavily, one hand held up in an effort to stop Hanta in his tracks.
I need help,
he whispers, voice rough and low. Hanta's amazed he can still speak. He opens his mouth to react somehow, even steps forward to catch him before screaming like a 10-year-old girl at a morgue, panic setting in like cold water. Never a dull night in Brooklyn. Once he's made sure that Spider-Man, Miles, the young man bleeding all over his $12 Walmart carpet supplies, isn't going to die anytime soon, Hanta's quick to recover from his shock. Bustling around his tiny apartment to make cheap ramen and digging around in his closet to find his mini first aid kit, he's in full fanboy mode. He's got posters plastered wall to wall of Miles Morales on his bedroom walls, for God's sakes. Not that he knew it was Miles Morales, but still. Miles Morales is curled up in the fleece blanket Hanta's mom had sent him his second week at college, and he's totally not freaking out. He'd had to cancel his nightly FaceTime call with you, lying about a stomach bug. He hates keeping things from you, but this is just too big and messy and dangerous. He'll tell you in due time, he promises himself, trying to ease the coil of guilt in his stomach.
How did you end up on my windowsill again?
Hanta asks, gently pushing the bowl of noodles towards the injured man. He's got his own pad thai long forgotten in the microwave, more focused on the superhero who'd gotten his ass whooped on his doorstep, so to speak.
I told you. I'd been watching you for a while. You're the most promising candidate I have.
Miles's voice is slick with humor, a sort of teasing confidence that's clear even through the pain.
Which I'm still not understanding. Candidate for what? Blood services? Biology questions? How to make $20 last 2 weeks?
He knows he's being childish, too joking for the severity of the situation, but he can't help it. The neighborhood's and his own hero is sitting in front of him, eating shitty 33-cent ramen from the bodega around the corner, telling him he's a prime candidate
to take the mantle.
All traces of laughter are gone now, Miles leaning forward on the table to emphasize his words.
I've been doing this long enough to know when to quit. My body's giving out on me. I got slammed into a wall last week and couldn't shake the pain till yesterday. Before, I'd be fine within an hour. The city needs someone new, young, willing to take the risks.
Hanta's ears stopped listening the moment he heard quit.
Me? Are you fucking joking?
He wheezes, coughing his way past the shock.
I get winded walking up to my apartment. An old lady beat me to the C train yesterday. A strong wind could kick my ass.
Miles is either willfully ignoring him or just can't hear, plowing ahead with his explanation.
You've got the perfect build for web swinging, and you've got a good heart. You know when to do the right thing and when to step away. Leave the rest up to me, and trust me. I know what I'm doing.
Hanta can't believe his ears, pushing away from the table to pace around his kitchen in panic.
I don't think you understand. You've got the wrong guy. There's no way I could be Spider-Man.
His words are falling on deaf ears. Miles is standing too, and he doesn't seem to care about Hanta's impending panic.
You gotta trust me on this, alright? Meet me tomorrow at this address, 12 p.m. sharp. The city needs you, Hanta. Hell, I need you. Just have a little faith.
Hanta scoffs at that, throwing his hands in the air.
Faith? I met you an hour ago, bleeding all over my windowsill. That's not exactly the most... Hey! Where the hell?
There's nothing but a blanket, a hastily scrawled address, and an empty bowl where Miles had sat, leaving Hanta alone with his thoughts. Damn it. Hanta pushes through the crowds of people at 11 a.m. the next morning, half asleep but wired enough to power the whole city. Hell, the whole goddamn country. He's running on no sleep, adrenaline, 2 Red Bulls, and the guilt of lying to you again, his stomach bug keeping him from class. He'd told you he was going to visit his parents for the weekend to recover. Your sweet messages in response only made him feel worse. He's tossed and turned over this decision a million times, and yet he's still not sure where he stands. It's so little information, so much responsibility in so little time. He's still half convinced he's being punked if he's honest. And yet, something's drawing him to the address Miles had left him. Something deep in his gut that tells him he needs to be there. Clearly, Miles had seen something he himself was woefully oblivious to, and it couldn't hurt to find out more. Apple Maps leads him to a tiny shed somewhere behind a deli and a nail salon, not too far from his apartment, and he's completely confused.
Stupid GPS probably got me lost.
He whines, leaning against the door of the shed to zoom in on his location. The pigeons in the alley are the only ones to hear his panicked yelling as he phases right through it, tumbling all the way down a metal chute into the dark unknown. At least, for 10 seconds. He lands on a remarkably soft pad of foam, a glass panel separating him from a brightly lit, fancy-looking room, lined wall to wall with computers, parts, and half-made suits. Spider-Man suits. He doesn't know where to look first. A robotic feminine voice brings him out of his shock, the glass panel lighting up with code and writing.
Please enter your name.
Hanta is floored.
Hanta Sero?
The voice trills lightly before a red grid-like laser scans him head to toe. He's proud to admit he only squealed in terror once.
Identity confirmed. Welcome, Hanta.
The panel slides away to allow him access, his careful steps alerting the rest of the room's computers to light up at his arrival.
You came. I knew I chose wisely.
Miles comes into view slowly, limping heavily as he smiles. It's almost familiar, like he and Hanta have been friends for years. He finds it comforting.
Well, not every day you get to be Spider-Man.
Hanta jokes, fidgeting a little where he stands.
You gonna fit me for a suit or something?
Miles just laughs, shaking his head.
That comes later. First, we've got to get you bitten.
Bitten? For the third time in 24 hours, Hanta's screaming like a man who's just been told he has 2 days to live.
You want me to let that thing bite me? Have you lost your mind?
Miles sighs patiently, holding up the little glass vial to the light. Inside, the spider races up and down the glass, an odd orange color to its patterning.
It's the only way. No offense, but I saw that lady beat you to the C train. She was like 85.
Hanta's pouting now, crossing his arms.
She had a cane and she was agile. Hey, you keep that thing away from me, so help me God.
You're being dramatic. It's the size of a pea.
That's a fat-ass fucking pea.
Stay still.
I will not. Ow! Jesus! Fuck! That thing has tarantula jaws!
Miles carefully shepherds the spider back into the glass, chuckling a little.
It'll take a moment to cause effect. The original spider was crossbred with a more agile, lanky species, perfect for your body type. I'm hoping it'll be most effective in your transition.
Hoping?
Hanta squeaks, staring at the red welt forming on his hand, his vision's already starting to blur out, a throbbing pain traveling up his arm.
Well, it's the first time I'm experimenting with this.
You used me as a guinea pig?
It's perfectly safe. My mentor.
But Hanta's not listening anymore, the world swimming in front of his eyes before the ground rushes up rapidly to kiss his face. God damn it. When he comes to, he's wrapped in about half the blankets in Brooklyn, a cold compress against his sweaty forehead. He's burning up and his elbows hurt for some reason. His skin's gone all itchy, and he'd probably kick a pigeon for a glass of water. Sitting up alerts Miles to his newly conscious state, the man quickly scanning his vitals with a smaller version of the glass panel Hanta had been fascinated with earlier.
Thought you were gonna croak on me. How do you feel?
Itchy. And my arms hurt. Hanta's pushing off the blankets as he speaks, attempting to get comfortable. His body feels weird, like he'll burst out of his skin at any second.
Alright, don't panic. I need to see how it's mutated your body. Stay still.
Miles's fingers delicately press against his neck, shoulders, before jabbing at his ribs without warning. Hanta's arms shoot up on impulse, a trail of sticky, precise webbing escaping him from his elbows? What the fuck? Dude, what the fuck? Look at my elbows. They're all puffy and red and I'm gonna die and the coroner's gonna leak my story to the press and my mom's gonna see me in the paper with fucked up elbows. Hanta may or may not be panicking, poking at the tender, slightly swollen skin around the bends of his arms. Miles just rolls his eyes, clearly amused by his antics.
You're not gonna die. Japanese tape spiders shoot webbing from the bends of their 8 arms. It's a thicker and stronger strain of web. Clearly, your elbows are how your body is adjusted.
That doesn't make it better.
Hanta's too busy staring at himself to notice the other changes at first, but slowly they're trickling in. Heightened eyesight and hearing, an odd balance to his feet he hadn't had a day ago, even itchier fingertips, making it easier for him to grip flat surfaces, or at least Miles says.
Come on, let's get you a suit.
A week's worth of planning and adjusting has led him right here to this rooftop, suited feet firmly balanced on the ledge. He likes his suit, thinks it's unique. He'd modeled it after the spider who'd blessed him with these powers, orange and black and white. Miles sort of thinks it's ugly, but who cares? He'd been in and out of the fondly named Spider Lounge, getting fitted for his suit and honing his new abilities. He'd also been avoiding you whenever possible. He couldn't suck you into this world, not when he was barely comfortable in it himself. He kept promising himself he'd come clean, but the guilt's eating him alive with every sad look and evening alone you spend. Another impatient cough brings him back to the present, Miles sitting in the middle of the roof and watching Hanta's nervous stalling.
You're gonna have to jump eventually, you know,
he calls, and it takes everything in him not to turn tail and run. He has a duty, a responsibility now, and he doesn't take that lightly. He thinks of you, sitting in your ratty little apartment off campus, and remembers that your safety is all but in his hands now. He's got to protect the city, for your sake at least.
I absolutely will not hesitate to kick you off this rooftop,
Miles threatens, but it's empty. They both know Hanta needs to do this himself. One step back, then 2, the nerves racing up his spine as he prepares himself to meet cold concrete. A dramatic thought. Miles would catch him far before he reaches the ground. A bad knee wouldn't stop him from that. He says a silent prayer to every god he's ever heard of and closes his eyes, taking a step forward into the air. And trips over the ledge, falling ass over heels into the air. Nice. The rushing wind only heightens his panic for a moment before one arm snaps up to blindly shoot into the air. His spider sense kicks in from there, aiming without even realizing and latching onto a nearby ledge. He swings aimlessly for a moment before finding a new ledge, then a railing. Slowly, he finds a rhythm. He's soaring through the city before he realizes, laughing at the sharp roar of the wind in his ears. He feels like he's flying, weightless as a bird. The only thing he can think of is you. How much you'd love this. One day, he'll take you web swinging. One day. For now, he relishes in the fact that he's one step closer to being Brooklyn's and New York's new Spider-Man, fresh-faced and determined to bring peace to the city. He's going to do it for you, even if it kills him.